The greatest pop star in history started as a shy kid in a small steel town, and within just a few years would change music forever. Before the moonwalk. Before the sold-out stadiums. Before the groundbreaking music videos and the global superstardom. Michael Jackson was just a kid growing up in Gary, Indiana, an industrial steel town far removed from the glamour of Hollywood or the bright lights of New York. Michael was born on August 29, 1958, the 8th of 10 children in the Jackson family. The household was crowded, loud, and full of energy. Music was everywhere in the home. His mother, Katherine Jackson, loved singing and often filled the house with gospel music. His father, Joe Jackson, worked long hours at a steel mill but had dreams of musical success himself. It didn't take long for Joe to realize that his children had extraordinary talent. He began organizing them into a group that practiced constantly in their small living room. Mistakes were corrected quickly, rehearsals were strict, and perfection was expected. The group would eventually become known as the Jackson 5. At first, Michael's older brothers, Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, and Marlon, handled most of the singing. But when Michael began performing at just 5 years old, it was immediately clear that something special was happening. Despite being the youngest member, Michael's voice had a rare emotional power. He could deliver soul, energy, and passion far beyond what anyone expected from a child. And once he stepped onto a stage, audiences couldn't look away. The Jackson 5 began performing at local talent shows, clubs, and small venues throughout Indiana and neighboring states. Night after night, the young group refined their sound and sharpened their choreography. They won competition after competition. Eventually, word about the talented brothers began to spread beyond their hometown. One of the most important turning points came when the group caught the attention of Diana Ross and the legendary record label, Motown. Motown was already home to some of the biggest names in music, artists like Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, and the Supremes. But even among that incredible roster, the Jackson 5 quickly stood out. In 1969, Motown introduced the group to the world, and the response was explosive. Their first single, I Want You Back, shot straight to #1 on the charts. It was followed by a string of massive hits, including Abassi, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There. Incredibly, the Jackson 5 became the first group in history to have their first 4 singles reach #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Michael, still only a child, had become a national star. But what made him different wasn't just his voice. Even at a young age, Michael displayed an instinctive understanding of performance. His dance moves were sharp and energetic. His facial expressions told a story. And his connection with the audience felt natural and magnetic. It was clear that Michael wasn't just another talented singer. He was a born entertainer. As the 1970s continued, the Jackson 5 remained popular. But Michael was beginning to grow into his own identity as an artist. He released several solo projects during his teenage years, gradually exploring new sounds and musical ideas. But the true turning point in his career came at the end of the decade. In 1979, Michael teamed up with legendary producer Quincy Jones. The result was the album Off the Wall. The project blended pop, disco, funk, and soul into a sound that felt fresh, polished, and irresistible. Songs like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You became instant classics. The album sold millions of copies and established Michael Jackson as a serious solo artist, not just a former child star. But even with that success, Michael believed he could go further. Much further. He wanted to create an album that would reach every corner of the world. An album that would change music forever. In 1982, that vision became reality. Michael released Thriller. No one, not the record label, not the critics, not even the biggest fans, could have predicted what would happen next. Thriller exploded. Song after song dominated radio stations worldwide. Billy Joe became a cultural phenomenon. Beat It blended rock and pop in a way few artists had ever attempted. And the title track, Thriller, would soon become one of the most recognizable songs in music history. But Michael didn't stop with the music itself. He completely reinvented the idea of a music video. The video for Thriller, directed by John Landis, wasn't just a promotional clip. It was a mini horror film, complete with choreography, costumes, a narrative storyline, and cinematic production. When it premiered on MTV, audiences were stunned. Music videos had never looked like this before. And then came one of the most iconic moments in entertainment history. In 1983, during the television special Motown 25, Yesterday, Today, Forever, Michael performed Billie Jean live on stage. The performance was already electric. But halfway through the song, Michael glided backward across the stage in a move that defied gravity. The moonwalk. The audience exploded with excitement. Viewers watching at home were mesmerized. And overnight, Michael Jackson became the most talked about performer on the planet. From that moment forward, he wasn't just a pop star. He was a global cultural phenomenon. Thriller would go on to become the best-selling album in music history, with over 70 million copies sold worldwide. But Michael refused to slow down. In 1987, he released the album Bad, which produced an incredible 5 #1 singles, including Bad, Smooth Criminal, and Man in the Mirror. His live tours became larger and more elaborate than anything audiences had seen before. Massive stages, complex choreography, special effects, and tens of thousands of screaming fans in stadiums around the world. Later albums like Dangerous and History, Past, Present, and Future, I continued pushing musical and visual boundaries. Michael also used his platform to address social issues. Songs like Black or White and Earth Song carried messages about unity, equality, and protecting the planet. By the 1990s, Michael Jackson had become one of the most recognizable people on Earth. His music crossed language barriers. His dance moves were copied everywhere. And his influence stretched far beyond pop music. Artists across multiple generations cite Michael Jackson as a major inspiration, from Usher and Chris Brown to The Weeknd and many others. His impact can still be seen in modern pop, R&B, and performance culture. Decades later, the legacy of Michael Jackson remains unmatched. He transformed music videos into cinematic art. He elevated stage performances to spectacular events. And he showed the world how powerful music could be when creativity, passion, and ambition collide. But perhaps the most incredible part of the story is where it all began. A small house in Gary, a young boy with a dream, and a voice that would one day echo across the entire planet. That boy grew up to become a legend. The one and only king of pop, Michael Jackson.